This week's song is The Seeker from Beasto Blanco's 2019 album, We Are. The song and video are open-ended, leaving you with your own interpretation of what may have gone on, but there's some nuggets and key points in there to talk about. And in this episode, Calico Cooper is with us to talk about those and a little bit more about Alice Cooper's Solid Rock. Buckle up, stay tuned, we're ready to rock.
Welcome to the Song and Verse Podcast, a discovery of God's Word, one song and a few verses at a time. Here's your host, Rockin' Odd Todd.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Song and Verse Podcast, a discovery of God's Word through song and verse. I am your host, Rockin' Odd Todd, and we are so happy you've decided to join us today. Anybody that knows a little bit about our ministry knows that on Fridays we focus a little bit on Alice Cooper and, you know, his life, some of the interviews he's done, and just his music in general tells a story and a narrative, and it's a prodigal narrative in many ways. So it was really great to sit down and have a chance to talk to his daughter, Calico Cooper, a little bit about her faith and her career and what Alice Cooper's Solid Rock means to her. As you know, we've still got a little bit of a fundraiser going on through Fridays with Alice, looking to give back to the Solid Rock, so we really hope that you'll give that a little bit of thought. But as we move towards this discussion with Calico, know that expression is one of the most awesome things that our Heavenly Father has given us through creation. The ability to express our ideas and thoughts and know that, you know, it may mean one thing to one person and something else to another, and to just see that expression gives us the ability to communicate with one another, and sometimes in ways we wouldn't even expect to communicate. So this was a really, really cool conversation with Calico, and it really, really brings up the importance of what it means to, you know, guide and direct our teens and give them a role in society. That was one thing that came up in the conversation quite a bit, was teens, along with all people, want to have a role. They want to serve a purpose. And when you give them that ability and you give them that opportunity, they surprise you in many, many different ways because they just want to be a part of it. And so it was really cool to hear Calico talk a little bit about that. And we also go a little bit into her music and her character and talk about her faith as well. This is a great episode. I really, really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. And today we have with us Calico Cooper, who is the lead singer, or one of the lead singers, of Beasto Blanco, and also the notorious daughter of Alice Cooper. How's it going today, Miss Calico?
It's going so well. You know, I'm getting creative with places to film in my house. So today we are live from my closet.
That's great.
My puppies are really loud, so this is the only place I can go.
Well, this is my traveling studio here too. I'm back and forth between certain areas, so I totally get it. Got to make do with what we got, right?
You look way more professional. You have like a black background with like a cool mic, and, like, moving this fan out of the way, like, oh.
Right. Well, it's jerry-rigged. Let's put it that way. It works. So that's great. So, you know, let's kick this off a little bit. What's it like to be a Christian in the world of rock? You know, is it difficult? Is it easy? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. When we started equating rock and roll as anti-Christian, and I know that there's bands out there that are like adamantly like, no thank you to Christians, which is, you know, that's
sure
the world, that's the state of the world. So
there's pop out there that does the same thing. So
right, and you know, and country and
right.
You know, all kinds of music. So I think I've been so shocked in the past year how many Christians really are out there and what they look like, because you know, I was brought up in a very like, you know, artsy, there was like so many like different colors of Christianity, and I was really disappointed to find out, you know, when I moved to Los Angeles, a lot of people's experiences of Christians were people that were fake, that were buttery and like frosted and like, how about you? I'm crazy. Like, you know, and always trying to get you to like join the cult kind of thing. And And I was really disappointed to hear that. And people would argue with me when I'd go, oh, I'm a Christian. And they go, oh, yeah, I'm Jewish. And I go, no, I mean, like, I'm a practicing Christian. I believe these things. And they're like, but you went out for drinks with us last night. I went, yeah, I love wine. I don't know what to tell you. Like, and they're like, isn't that like against your religion? So I think it's like a lack of information, you know, and like we were talking
and wasn't that the biblical choice of drink at weddings and stuff? I mean, I'm just saying. It
is. Right. But like, yeah, we were just talking about kind of like their experiences of it. So the same in rock and roll, where I feel like I used to not talk about it because I sort of fell into the idea too, like, well, I don't want to be like the weird Christian girl and everybody else is like, you know. And then I was really thinking about it and I go, what are you ashamed of? Mm-hmm. What are you so, and it was really like more of a conviction than anything else. Like, I'd like to say that I was so like in touch with my spirituality. Right. But really it was God being like, speak, say something. And I was so shocked at the warm reception and the respect, and I didn't feel like a weird outsider. It wasn't like, oh, don't do that around Calico. You know, it was actually more of like people started asking questions, and then I found out I didn't even know my own drummer in Beasto Blanco, Sean Sellers, is like this like amazing like punk drummer, and he plays with all these like really big, cool, gnarly punk bands. And I was sort of talking about it a little bit, you know, musing one night on the bus, and he goes, no way. He goes, I'm a believer too. I go, shut up. And he goes, yeah, I curse a lot, but I'm a believer. And he's like, I played drums in my church band. I went, wow, what? And then our guitar player, Chris Latham, I didn't even put two and two together. We call him Brother Latham, mm-hmm. right? And then I go, why do we always call you Brother Latham? And he goes, oh, well, you know, people used to kind of make fun of me because I carry a Bible everywhere with me. I went, what? So it's really amazing. And now I think it's less of a...
So was this a new discovery, or is this something you all kind of...
This was like, 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and we just, we've been making records and it just never come up. How does that ever come up?
Well, I mean, I think some people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, you're doing a job. Mm-hmm. How many times at work does faith always come up? It just doesn't if you're working, sometimes. Yeah. So, and I think people think that you all just sit around like a family sometime at the dinner table and just, oh, how was your day? How was your day? But it's like,
No, we definitely, have too many cocktails and get into it sometimes where it's like, not in a bad way, but,
sure.
After a show, it's like, I think the last season of Game of Thrones is overrated. And then you'll go from there where it turns into 5 a.m. and it's like, all I'm saying is that Lord of the Rings is Christian. Look at the but I love those. I live for those conversations. And, I think you'd surprise yourself the more you bring it up, the more, it's not like people pop into it and go, oh, that's crazy, I'm a Christian too. But you're going to get a lot of complicated stories. A lot of people that have been hurt by Christians. A lot of people who have been overlooked by the Christians that they know. And so it's a great talking point because it's like, if nothing else God wants to use me for, it's to show somebody maybe that's been hurt by someone, mm-hmm. that it's not Christians that hurt people. Hurt people. And damage can be done by anyone. And I'm so sorry that it was somebody professing faith. We're human. We're going to mess up. But, a lot of these stories that I'm hearing are really, it hurts me so badly that that's where it came from. And if I can show you that not everyone is like that, then maybe God can move from there if I could just do that little thing.
Well, and there's 2 points that really kind of brings out for me because, my own personal walk in faith, I've always noticed that if I just approach somebody with the love of Christ and not the judgment of humanity, mm-hmm. then like you were saying, there's acceptance all day long. but they're accepting Christ in me at that point. They're not accepting this brokenness and this flesh that I spew out at other people when I'm in that,
Yeah, I'm the worst, literally, like the worst. I've got a temper. My language is subject to scrutiny, all kinds of things, but I want this.
Right. And you're a transformation in process. It's a journey. It's not, not everybody got hit by the light that Paul got hit by on the road. And
as a matter of fact, I was born into a Christian home. So it's like both grandfathers were pastors. I was surrounded by it. So as you will, or, maybe as like God wanted me to, I moved to LA and I was like, thank you. No. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of did my thing. I wish it was a better story where it's like, I was on drugs on the street. But I walked away, like sure. Not 180, which is like the cool story to tell, right? Where it's like, I turned my back and I went crazy. I just sort of did like a 95 mm-hmm. where I was sure. like, I don't not believe this, but it's just not relevant
right
now. Like, what do I need this for? And I'd always just sort of like gone through the motions, and I'd never had an experience where it's like God like captured my heart, and I couldn't even explain what that was until it happened. I'd see people in church all the time just like having these moments, and I'm like, oh man, there she goes, the lady that cries every sermon. Like, and it really wasn't until I remember exactly when it was. I was still the Christian friend, right? Because there's certain things I wouldn't do. And even if I wasn't practicing them, I'm just like, no.
Right.
So I remember my best friend was like, hey, one of the guys I work with is preaching his first sermon ever. And he's nervous and he wants a bunch of us from work to come to make him feel better. And I know you're Christian. And all of the people from work were non-believers. And I know you're Christian. Would you want to go? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I'd never been to a church where they do an altar call where, they're like, if you need prayer, if you just want to pour it out, if you just come to the front and sing, pray, do whatever you want. And I was like, oh gosh, it's such like in my head at the time, such like a vulgar display of like, and I didn't get it. And I sat there and I was going through something really gnarly at the time, like really, really bad. And I had it on lock though. I was like, I got it. No big deal. And they said, if you need prayer for anything or whatever. And so my friend is always a bit mocky when it comes to, when it comes to Christianity. She's like, I'm just saying you're a very smart person. It doesn't track. And I'm like, okay, well, agree to disagree.
Right.
So I go up front for the altar call. I do not know why. Maybe because it was a small church and I'm like, well, I should try this once. I remember getting down on my knees and I was praying and then I don't remember what happened, but it happened. I felt like, and I started to cry and it was the most amazing thing where I was like, I literally felt, I know it's such an overused term, but I felt like somebody pulled a sheet off my head. And I felt these hands on my back and I was like, oh, great. Now here's where these like touchy-feely Christian types are going to like try and hug me and put hands on me and pray. And I looked up and it was my friend. She'd come from the back and put her hands on me just because she was like, I saw you were emotional and I've never seen you like that. So she was literally covering me so nobody would touch me. She was just like, and so it was like a double barrel, like shot to the heart where I reconnected with God in that moment. And also my best friend showed me she didn't care about anything other than me.
Wow.
She would go right down to the front of the altar and cover me up so no crazy people tried to touch me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And it's cool how God, intercedes with certain people in your life that way too. And like, when you need that extra pick-me-up or whatever, there's that one person or maybe a group of people that he has right there in line, But the other thing that you really made me think about was, I think the world, unfortunately, looks to Christians to find out what Christianity is.
Yeah.
And we're so broken. You can't, we don't, there's a reason he came, and it's because we can't carry that standard. We're never going to live up to it. Stop looking at us. Look at what we look to, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, that just keeps pointing back to Christ and what you were saying about, you know, I've never really seen that part of it rejected. I've never seen, you know, what he did for us. Nobody wants to reject, you know, that's not the rejection part of it. The rejection part of it is when you allow your flesh to cover what he's done and be who you were. And that starts coming back through, because that's, you know, that's the part that's a sort of a stench, so to speak, or the wretched old man, or however you want to look at it, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're doing a little bit of a fundraiser for Solid Rock right now. And I'm curious, what kind of role have you played in that? You know, is Solid Rock a big deal for you? Have you been out there a bunch? How's it go?
You know, I have been there, obviously, since the inception, the idea of Solid Rock. And we just found, by the way, a brochure when Solid Rock first became a thing. And it was a brochure, you know, for underserved teens. Yeah. And it was like, we didn't really know any. And so me and my friend Scott Saval and Dave Mason, and we all got together, and we were like the teens. Because we hadn't started. It was like 2 days after this idea.
Oh, so you guys are in the promotional.
Yeah. And it turns out that I was a part of it, and I'm so happy to have been in the inception, because I have been a part of fundraising. I've been a part of these teens' lives who are now adults, you know, since this started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, I don't know if you saw our quarantine video. So the idea was we'd come to quarantine at my parents' house, and they're filming a million things. You know, my parents' passion is the Solid Rock, and they give so much of their time and energy to do it. And so we had a piece of paper. I keep wanting to say fax. I'm definitely not that old. But the piece of paper there that was like, hey, we're going to have to address the fact that we can't do the tournament this year. How do you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom and dad were sitting there. They're going, I'm sorry, my nose is running, so I'm being gross, but.
Where's your mask?
I'm in my closet. Yeah, so they're like, how do you want to address this? And my dad's like, well, I guess, you know, I could do a video and just say like, hey, you know, here's what's up. And a couple of people at Solid Rock and I were like, or since we're all stuck in the house. And so Joy, one of the ladies that runs it, sent over a rough idea where she says, what if we did sort of like a funny, like janky, like, oh, it's the tournament, whatever. And I go, if you want to go that direction, my middle name is Go Big or Go Home.
Right.
And since we're already at home, let's go big. And literally, like, it's such a joke. People like send me things.
Nice.
So, yeah, so I go, all right, let's do it. And it was so much fun. It reminded me of being in like high school doing those like videos for class, because we didn't have anything in the house. And so we were just, and everybody was down to play and put on makeup and costumes. And it was the most fun day putting it together. We were crying, laughing. But it was so much fun. It's actually one of those memories, just making it, that is like going to be one of my favorite family memories ever. Like, I mean, who has a giant pink ball gown in the house? We do. I was like, nice, what's this? And my mom's like, I don't know, but let's use it.
That's great.
So I've always been a part of Solid Rock and the fundraising and stuff. And we just recently had to shoot, you know, a video for the Wacken Festival. You know, my dad was supposed to play that. And it was so cool because we go, where are we going to shoot it? It has to be a stage. Everything's closed. So we shot it down at The Rock. And we had the teens do stuff they've never done before, where I found 5 kids that were just like kind of like sitting there, like, you know, in their masks, like playing games, like playing guitar. And I go, hey, are you busy? And they're like, and I go, yeah, come on. And so I had like these 5 kids and they were so efficient, so much fun. Like they're holding the fog machines. And I'm like, when I throw my hand down, I was like, I want you to cover that light with this piece of paper. And the girl's like, okay. And so I created an army of like techs in about 10 minutes, and they were so great. They made it. We couldn't have done it without them. And when I left, one of the kids came up and he goes, that was the best day of my life. He's like, this might be what I want to do. I might want to do stage production. And I go, you should. And he's like, you were crawling around on the ground and like holding wires with your teeth and like fanning the smoke. And I go, that's what it is. That's all that it is.
No, that's so cool. And, you know, I've heard so many success stories from that place. And, you know, part of writing some of that Fridays with Alice stuff was finding out what solid rock is. And I'm like, this is phenomenal. This is a blueprint for every single city in every country. I mean, to bring your teens and make them productive in society and give them a role and not just sit around, you know, doing nothing. Teach them now.
They want to is the thing. Like, you know, you're not looking at, I feel like these teens are so much cooler than I was, because I was, you know, I was busy, but I definitely had that like, whatever. And none of them have that.
I'm noticing that too, yeah.
It's so cool. I'm so inspired by them because they're down at the teen center, and if there's a new kid, they're helping the new kid figure out what's up.
Yeah.
You know, they're if they've been in the you know, engineering program for a couple of months, you know, not only are they learning, but they're plugging in to stuff, because now it's cool to care. When I was a teenager, it was like not cool to care. It was cool to be like, whatever. But now it's like kindness is cool, and being not a bully is cool. It's so rad.
Well, and even like somewhere down the line, being a nerd is cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Nerds turned into hipsters.
Yes. And I'm like, man, if I had only been growing up now, I would have been so many years of pain wouldn't have happened, you know?
Yeah.
But so are there any, I mean, that's an awesome story. Do you have any other like success stories that are some of your favorites, like from the past or anything that really come to mind?
I mean, I just love watching. There's so many.
I mean, it's probably tough. I mean, just in the 2 years that I've kind of seen it, I've seen like Conrad, I've seen Sophie Dorston, I've seen Conrad. That guy from last year. I mean, all those guys that were in the YouTube 40 video, it's like phenomenal. And then they did YYZ. When did YYZ with the suicidal tendencies basis? Yeah. And so, I mean, you can't. I'm sure it's tough to pick one, and you've seen, you know, hundreds.
Well, for 20 years, what I think what we see on the surface, you know, through the internet is, you know, a teen center, and like people just probably assume like, oh, you know, big rock star, it's probably pretty easy, just slap down a couple million, open a teen center. But this was something. This solid rock has been in the works since I was 16.
Yeah.
Which was like 2 years ago. But like it's been over 20 years of like hard work and doing it right.
I think that's what I heard your mother say once. She was like, you know, it's like a 20-year pregnancy. You know?
It is. And it just keeps evolving. And you know, I know I'm privy to the meetings and how much these people care about the rock. I mean, just recently, within the past year, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, Diego, started running the engineering program. So he's teaching these kids to engineer and to mix and to all this stuff. And when we were home for quarantine, I watched him. He's taking meetings every like couple of hours.
Wow.
You know, on the phone, he's going, yes, no. I mean, it takes an army of people that you have to really care about this to keep it afloat. And if one person goes, you know, it's literally like... It's
like playing Jenga. If one of those pieces isn't doing what it's supposed to, boom, yeah.
Exactly. And I can tell you, if anybody watching that doesn't know The Rock, it's, I'm so skeptical of nonprofits. You know, you hear these horrible things where it's like, ooh, this guy's taking this, or oh, it's like getting siphoned this way or that way. I'm right in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And I could not back, or even if it was my own family, could not sit here and say, this is a good place to give or put your money because it's really being used for underserved teenagers. If I didn't know it with my hands, if I didn't know it with my heart, and if I didn't know every person that worked there, far, far more than they're getting paid, putting their time, they're never off the clock. They're constantly like, hello, no, I don't know. Like, so it's definitely.
And they're available for those teens too, correct?
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say a labor of love. It's something that these people are called to do, is to serve these teenagers. And it's not like so many of these teens, like you said, like they go off and do great things, and just like hurt people, healed people, heal people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when somebody reaches out and says, I care about you, and I'm sticking with you, even if you have a little issue or whatever like that, you don't have to be perfect, but let me help you. Let me pour into you. And then they go on and they don't have to repeat the cycle of nobody cares, so I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody cared for me. And so now it's like in the workplace, let's say they're like, oh, this person is so unlovable, but so was I.
Yep.
Or this person is so standoffish, but so was I. And I know that firsthand. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't until I let people like love on me and like care about me that I was like, oh, okay, fine, maybe.
Well, and I think what you were saying a little earlier really, really hones in too, in the fact that, you were raised in a Christian home. You knew right from wrong. You knew good from evil, all of those great basics. But at some point, your parents' faith has to become your faith. And if it doesn't, and as far as, the teen center is concerned, those teens are searching just like anybody else. And I know that all it takes is somebody smiling correctly or just saying the right thing to you to really start navigating you in that path that you need to go on, Yeah,
and it's not a Bible camp.
No.
It's not like when somebody comes in there, it's like we get them in a headlock and we're like, Jesus or die.
Sure.
It's there, and it's not hidden that this is what we believe, and this is the foundation. This is the solid rock, literally. But all are welcome. All kids, all teens are welcome, and nobody is getting shunned or like converted in a weird closet. Like it's in a weird closet. It's open for all teens, and I think that that's such a beautiful thing where it's like, who did Jesus want? Who did he hang with? Who were his disciples?
Right.
Well, there were people like me who were like just rough as hell around the edges, but that wanted to follow and that believed, and that's who we can use. So
sure. And tax collectors, fishermen,
murderers of Christians.
Right. Totally. Serial killer. And I think that's, that's a great point to drive home. And that's what I've talked about with Randy in his episode was like, you don't have to beat somebody over the head with the Bible. You just need to walk, the way you were called to walk, and they're going to want to know what's different. Why are you doing this? And, you'll get that opportunity, and it only has to be a few words. It still doesn't have to be a sermon, So let's switch gears a little bit. So Beasto Blanco, I want to hear about, I can't remember, is she the Motor City Queen?
Oh, the Motor Queen, yeah.
The Motor Queen. I want to know about this character, and I want to hear about what this is all about.
So Beasto was really conceptualized by Chuck Garrick and Brother Latham, and the funny thing is that when I joined up, they hadn't put out a record yet. They wanted me to. I know Chuck from Alice. He's my dad's bass player, and we.
So Beasto Blanco has never been a band without you. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they started off. They started off making this record, and I wasn't like, they didn't really, I think, know what was going to happen with it. Chuck just had a bunch of songs that were like really specific sounding, right? And so they go, let's do a band. Let's bring Calico in to do some vocals, because I do a lot of voiceover. So really more than singing, it was, they go, can you do that like bratty sort of like teenage, like nasally thing? And I go, oh, yeah, no problem. So I wasn't.
And you did some of that on your dad's tour anyway, didn't you?
Yeah. So that's where he got the idea. So it's like, and I didn't have the gall to say, I can sing if you want me to. They asked specifically for me to do that. And so I was like, okay, so I'm doing that. And so I'm doing all that stuff. And I did the record, and then they go, hey, let's just do a tour in Europe. And so I initially, and we never talked about it, but it was like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a Ferretti girl, like a cave woman sort of thing. So I'll sort of stay in the back and just do like those parts. And that was initially the vision. But, Chuck is pretty good about seeing when something's working. He can read a crowd. He can kind of read the room. And the more that I performed, and actually less about me, it was more about us. Mm-hmm. The more that I connected with him and we started playing off each other, he goes, okay, people are liking this. They're digging this. And it's sort of like, a Sonny and Cher from hell is how it started. and it's because I'm so tall and so commanding, and he hunches down and he's kind of like, this beastly, werewolf. And I'm this like tall, like Castlevania, like vampire sort of looking chick. And so it like worked, the werewolf and the vampire. And then we just went from there. And then it became sort of like Natural Born Killers. And now it's going into like, space sort of sci-fi thing where I'm this like...
It's almost like classic horror meets rock or something.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we never went for horror. Yeah. We never, with our images, with our songs, like we never really sang about anything horrific. It was always about like, at first it started off, like riding motorcycles and all this stuff. And then it went into like, by the time we get to We Are, which is our We Are's record, that was all about like stand up, get up out of the dirt, whatever dirt pile you're laying in, whether it's, emotionally, politically, whatever, relationship wise, get up out of the dirt and be like, not today. And so that kind of like the message is alone we can't do anything, but together we are. And that kept coming up in the writing process. It's like in interviews, it was never, I found myself never saying, well, I, and, Chuck was never like, I. We kept saying, well, we are this and we are that. And we are Beasto Blanco. I was like, whoa, that's totally the name of the record. We are. Yeah. And so, and it really had an amazing reception. And we're writing another one now. And I love the interplay that we have. I love putting that character on. And I think it is me. I think it's also like a part of me that's not accepted societally, in a way of like, I get to just go with my impulses, and we have to be considerate and, reading the room, aware, in our sitting here selves. I'm set loose. Yeah. And I'm even like, what's happening? Like, I don't know. And I love it. And I know that I'm always...
It's like she doesn't take crap off anybody kind of deal.
No,
Is that what you think?
A weird feeling of like, I feel predatory.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I feel like, almost like she's more animal than she is machine. And so like the character started getting built up where it was like, okay, we don't know yet, and we might tackle this in the next record. We don't know yet who made this thing, or if she used to be human, or if she was always, part robot, and then like they added the human bits. But I feel like the more I play her, I feel like she's now all of a sudden discovering like herself, like, what's this, kind of thing. And she's discovering how she makes people feel. And so like when I am on stage, a lot of times I'm watching, and I love seeing this from a crowd because it means I'm doing something right. I'm telling a story. I'm not just singing. I'm doing this with you. It's not me up here, you down there. Like, I don't know what's happening either. And
so do you ever think there'll be like a concept type album or anything like that might work?
I think so. We've been approached to do comic books. Our stuff just went on sale at Hot Topic. And my teenage self is like losing my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in Hot Topic. But so I'm having as much fun figuring out who this is. And like, there's a song called Solitary Rave, and I sort of have this thought process where it's different from all the other Beasto songs. And I think it's this creature just became aware that she has an effect on people, right? And what she looks like. And so when I sing the song, I'm almost like telling you, like, I've just realized I have these hands and these nails, and it's so much fun to play. And I don't know where it's going, but I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. Well, and I read a story, and tough subject here, but I read a story like, I guess a year or two ago, where the bat got stolen. Did the bat ever show back up?
Yeah. No. And I know who took it too, and it's awful because you can't call them out. Like, I mean, you did. I did. We basically said, look, we know who took it. And the person's like, no, I didn't. And we're like, okay.
Wow, man.
But you know what you did. And honestly, it's like that story of, I don't know if you know that old parable where it's like the little red toe shoes, where it's like this little girl was terrible at dance. And then this guy came along and gave her like a magic pair of red toe shoes, and all of a sudden she was the best. And at the end, you know, it's sort of like Wizard of Oz. Like, you never needed the toe shoes.
Oh,
you were always. So Chuck made me that bat. And when he gave it to me at the beginning of Beasto, he said, use it or don't. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I just developed a relationship with it, and what that made me and who that made me to the crowd and what I do. It's not just some arbitrary thing.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like The Walking Dead and Negan, I guess, but not the same, but you know.
Right. Well, I remember watching that episode going, really?
Yeah.
But it gives me
yeah, because you guys were there first, right?
I know, but what are you going to do, you know?
Right.
So it gave me power, and it gave me strength, and when I had it in my hand, it was like I felt different. And so when that one got taken away, legit, I hate even saying this, but I got emotional because I'd had that same bat since we started, and I was not confident. When Chuck said, I want to do a band, I go, I don't know if I'm a singer. I don't know. You know, I don't want to. And that gave me the confidence to go out and dare you to say something, you know, and then I became what I am now, which is a really confident singer, a really confident performer in that way. And when somebody took it, I was like, it was my little red toe shoes. I was like, I can't do it anymore. But the real reason it got stolen was to show us how much people cared about us as a band and about me. And it was just like, every show after that, at least 3 people showed up with a bat they made.
Oh, wow.
And at one point, I think we had like 25 bats. And it was never about the bat. I think it was so mind-blowing to see people go, oh, I was up all night, I made you this. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're definitely going to do a nod to those people in one of our next videos. We're going to use all the bats in one of the scenes. And so cool.
That's really cool. So the seeker does the seeker have any kind of meaning whatsoever?
Yeah. Well, if you're dealing with me, usually there's meaning.
Sure.
Yeah, it marked the first time that I was allowed to take the reins completely. And the record label and Chuck and the band and everybody, I think, had seen some of my other work in, you know, TV and film and some things that I had directed. And I didn't have to fight as hard as I thought I would. Mm-hmm. I go, guys, I have a concept for The Seeker. I know that the record is doing better even than we thought it would, and it's getting a lot of buzz. Can you trust me with this? Can you trust me with this concept? And of course it wasn't about like, you know, being a girl or anything. It was just like, and there's a guy that usually directs our videos, you know, and I said, I really want to do this. I have a concept. It's big, I'll admit it, but I think we can do it. So they completely let the reins go and go, all right, here you go. And so it was a big undertaking. I didn't want to let anybody down. But yeah, I was listening to The Seeker driving home from my parents' house across the desert to California. And I just kept seeing, when I listened to it over and over, there's just endless desert, right? When you're driving from Arizona to California. And I just kept seeing a girl. It wasn't me, but a girl with long dark hair. And she was just running for her life, no shoes, across the hard rock, you know, and I just kept kind of seeing her and I go, okay, why is she running? What is she running away from? And all of a sudden it just like exploded in my head. And I called Chuck and I go, we're going to have to rent an old Western town. So we did. And the story was really about a woman who is, and I wanted to leave it up for interpretation if she was wrongfully accused or not.
Right.
If she was a prostitute, a witch, whatever that these three men thought she was.
One of them with a badge on, right? Correct.
Yep, the sheriff. Yep. And funny enough, so those two of those guys are really well-known actors. They're on the show Power. They're good friends of mine, Jarrell Lee Wesley and Alex Popovic, and they agreed to come down and play with us. And I just loved it. Like, Lee's the enforcer. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's got the bat, right? And seeing Alex, who's such a great actor too, I cut off a piece of my hair for him to like just twist in his fingers, like what they're doing to me, whether I deserved it or not. I wanted to tell the story that it was like these guys liked it, whether I deserved it or not. They were enjoying it,
right? And
having the people in the town, the women especially that were all beat up, was telling the story. These guys have been here before, done this before. So like those quick flashes of those people who are all legit actors, like that I know that work all the time, and they were nice enough to come play. But yeah, so when they come into town, I wanted everyone to kind of like fall into the shadows, and I loved the shot specifically where I get up and I turn and I face the biggest of all of them, and it was like this David and Goliath moment where I've reached the end of where I can run. Sanctuary, right? I kept thinking Esmeralda in The Hunchback.
Mm-hmm.
Right, she's hiding in the church because it's a safe place. And when they bust the doors open, basically saying no place is safe for you, I stand up, and when I turn around, I had all the candles blow out, and I wanted it to be like, was that God saying I've got your back? Kind of thing. And like walking up and facing the biggest one of them and having him pick me up right by my neck, and me just saying, you're going to have to kill me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run anymore. And so then the fight sequence was hysterical because all three of those guys are such gentlemen, and I can take a punch. And the three of them are like, they're great actors too, but they're just like, oh, this is really. And I go, look, just throw your shoulder into it. I go, I'll do the work, just like I used to do with Alice during Only Women Bleed.
Yeah.
He never hurt me, but I made it look like he hurt me by the way I'm thrashing around and throwing myself. So I said, let me run the fight. Let me lead the dance. So, punching and pushing. And at one point, Alex, the sheriff, gets me in the stomach, and he caught me in the chest. He punched me in the chest. And they caught the reaction, and I told, keep that take. Because I go, oh, knocked the wind out of me. And he was mortified. He was like, I quit my life. I can't believe that happened. And I'm like, it's fine. Don't worry. But yeah, and then the end of it was really I wanted it to be like the guys, the four horsemen, are coming in, and they're standing behind my friend Wednesday 13, who played the priest. So he's standing there, and they come behind him, and I wanted that shot of all of them to be like, are they there to help me, or are they there to seal this deal? And so I look around, and when I smile at him, it's like I wanted that open for interpretation. Like, am I like, you're really in trouble now? Or am I like, it doesn't matter how many of you there are?
Right.
Right. And so it's just like, I wanted to leave it open for people to go, if that was me, this is what it would mean.
Yeah. That's really cool. Really cool. I mean, it's always cool to hear the story, from the person that actually dreamt it up, because there is so much interpretation there. So that's really cool. Really cool. Do you want to talk about the burns? Your parents told me about that. They were so distraught the day I met them in November.
Oh.
And if I could bottle it up, being a parent of 5, it's like I felt for them that day, because they wanted to be with you.
Oh.
And,
it's interesting. There was a period of time there, a lot of tragedy happened, like bing, bang, blah, 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 blah. Like my dog of 15 years died. I caught on fire. A friend of mine got murdered. Like it was all in this like 2-month period. And I was like a little bit like, you know, and so yeah, it was a tough time. But the burn thing was, it was a fluke accident. I was cooking oil in this big pan. I was making Indian food, and I had this like oil crackling in the pan. And then right next to it, I had a candle that was, I put the candle, stupidly, on the stove because sometimes it leaves rings on my counter. Mm-hmm. So I put it on the metal on the stove. And so I was cooking whatever, and my dog, who, you know, died a couple weeks after I got burned.
Wow.
Got in, she was real quiet, little thing, got in between my feet, and I didn't see her, and I went to step back, and I tripped, and so my arm hit the pan handle. So the hot oil was coming towards my face, and I just did one of these, right? And the pan knocked a candle over onto the ground too. So now I'm covered in oil, the ground's covered in oil, and the candle fell and lit.
Oh my gosh.
So my hands caught on fire, and it was a flash. It wasn't like they were like burning, like, you know, like a hero, but they did one of those woof things, and I didn't feel it at first other than I saw the blue like that, and I just did one of those, and there were pieces of the floor, I remember, that were on fire, and so I went and grabbed a couple of rags, and I was trying to put them out, but the fire kept jumping up and getting my hands. So yeah, it was so bad. I couldn't put out some of the fires because they were oil fires, and I didn't know like no water, and so I'm throwing water and they're getting bigger, and I don't know what to do, and I can't think of where our fire extinguisher is. My brain has gone blank. Right. So I just ran out front, and it was like 9 p.m. on a Sunday night, I remember. I ran out front, and I just started yelling for help. And I live in like a really sort of like suburban, like, you know, white picket fence neighborhood. Everyone's asleep.
Yeah.
And I just started screaming for help, and I had my hands wrapped in a pair of wet sweatpants because that's all I could find. And I'm screaming for help, and this man, a couple houses down, ran in, and he grabbed me by the shoulders, and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "There's a fire in my house." I wasn't even worried about the fact that I was burnt. I was just like, "There's a fire in my house. Please help me, help me." So he ran in, and I said, my dogs. And he's like, okay. So he put out the fire, came out, and he said, "I want you to show me your hands." And I was like, and he's like, "I need you to show me your hands." And so I didn't want to look, and I showed him, and he goes, "We need to call an ambulance right now." And I was like, okay. So I go, "My dogs." And they're like, "Your dogs are in the house. Everything's fine. There's no fire." So the ambulance came, and I guess I was in shock because they kept shining the flashlight, you know, whole thing. And there's all these firemen everywhere. And I just remember flashes of it because I was in shock. And I remember feeling like pins and needles all over my body. I felt like I was freezing, and I was shaking. And I guess like my eyes were like pinned. And they were like, "You're in shock." And I was like, okay. And so we, my husband got home in time, and they were like, "Do you want him to drive you or us to drive you?" And I was like, "I want him to drive me." So I've never felt pain like that in my life. I kept feeling like the room was going black. I was trying to stay conscious, but like my brain was like, "This is too much pain. You have to black out, or else I can't handle it." And so I was in the car, and I'm just like shaking, trying to stay awake. And we get to the ER, and of course there's a million people there. And my husband happened to know the admitting nurse from when they were teenagers and worked at Chili's together.
Wow.
And he was like, "No way." And he's like, "Hey, can you help me out?" And she's like, "Well, there's people in line. Like, obviously we have to wait, but I can get her some medication right now." And so that was like so helpful. Yeah, I ended up in the burn unit, and, you know, they were talking about skin grafts and all this stuff. And I was just, I cannot recall a time that I have prayed so hard. I was like, "God, I cannot get skin grafts. Where are they going to take it from?" Like, you know, and yeah, it was really tough, and it was really emotional. And I, you know, I've never felt pain like that, unrelenting pain. It was so bad. And it was just my hands, which is bad enough. But, you know, I think now it gave me a perspective when you see people like prisoners of war and people that have been burnt or had acid thrown on them or, just in the burn unit at all. And I go, oh my gosh, that was just my hands. It was just my hands. And I mean, even just thinking about it, it's like I'm blown away at how bad that it was. And then what a miracle it was. It was 2 weeks of treatment. Not to be gross, but they had to cut away all the skin, all the burned skin. And the amount of pain I was in was like, it changed me as a human being. Really, something changed in my head, because it's like, I didn't realize that somebody can endure that much pain. Like cutting away with scissors, already burnt skin. Like I can handle anything now. All of a sudden, the fact that there's a line at Costco, I'm not concerned about it. Like it really did change my mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. I get it. Yeah.
So they wrapped me up. They called my parents. They sent them, photos, and they were just beside themselves. How can this happen? And I know they really wanted to be with me. And then it's like, then the dog passed away. And then like the horrible tragedy, my friend got murdered. And I was just like laying in bed.
Oh my gosh.
And I was, my friend Tiffany had to come over and give me showers. Like I would put my hands outside in a bathing suit, my hands outside, and she would have to like wash my hair because I couldn't use my own hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I worked around it, but that was a really tragic time. And
well, and you and I were talking a little bit off camera about how, sometimes we just don't know. We don't know why things happen the way they do.
Yeah, I don't understand why then and why in such like close sequence. But I mean,
and we may never find out,
No.
And, going back to faith a little bit, it's like, like you were saying before, it's like, it's okay to say, I don't know, and I don't have all the answers.
I think that's the message really that, if anybody cares, that I would say now is that it's okay to not know. It's okay to say, I don't know. Like, it's so cool to have the answers and to have an opinion. And I know, especially now with like social media and everything, it's cool to take a stand. It's cool to like know. And it is, it's cool. Know about politics, know about your local government, know about health, know about it, do your research. But it's also okay to not have an answer for everything.
Right.
And I'm learning to just be okay with not being the guy that knows everything. And so I've gotten into so many great conversations, just being honest and saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. It really started with the burns and the tragedies like in my life. Having our friends come together and lament at the death of our friend. And, people were turning to me as a Christian going, why would this happen to her? Why did this happen? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's like, I know God knows. But does that mean I have to? No. And in my faith, I'm okay at this point with just saying, it's in your hands, Lord. You know what you're doing. I don't. Give me the guidance and wisdom to keep me going in the right direction. And let's just worry about my relationship with you and not all these other factors around us, Yeah.
Yeah. I'm increasingly okay with not knowing what to say.
Yeah. Well, and I think it really becomes a religion versus relationship type of aspect when it comes to our faith anyway. It's, it's not about all these set rules and guidelines, because quite honestly, he came because we can't live up to those.
Yeah.
And that's not saying to just go out and do whatever the heck you want. It's just saying, that there's a better way. And when you start to put those pieces that he has incorporated and kind of given us like a guidebook, so to speak, to look at, when we do those his way, it seems like it works out better.
Yeah. Uncannily, it usually does.
Sure. And so, well, this has been great, Calico. I so appreciate you being with us on this show. We're going to be following your career. We're going to be, we'll probably, I think this episode is really going to kind of evolve around the seeker anyway. And I kind of do like a little bit of a write-up that goes with the podcast. So that'll be cool. But like I said, I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate you telling us about the rock a little bit more and your experience there. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. And in closing, you're talking about the Seeker, one of and you're a lyric guy. One of the most important and lyrics that stuck with me forever was "Her iron will awakens," and that's exactly what it was, like the feeling of can you stand up after all that? Can you find some place, whether it's as a Christian, with God, or finding a place within yourself where you can get your trembling knees underneath you and stand up. And I just love even seeing that lyric, "Her iron will awakens." I love it.
Well, and that subtlety of Isaiah 40:31 right there on the camera that kind of flashes by just embodies that a little bit too, So that's perfect. Well, this has been great. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this is Rocking Odd Todd signing out for this episode. You guys be well. Thanks so much. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Song and Verse podcast. Hopefully it was an uplifting, honest, and meaningful experience for you. We do accept donations. If you feel led to give to the Song and Verse Ministries, check out songandverseministries.com/donate for a number of different ways to give back. And also be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. We hope you tune in to the next episode of the Song and Verse podcast. Until then, keep searching for the DNA of God's Word found flowing through song.